The female law students had made complaints to the department chair that all the male law students were getting the teaching assistant positions. And then when they did a little bit of research, they found that all the males were asking for the teaching assistant positions and the females were not.
Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I am so glad you're here. So, I wanted to talk to you for a little bit. What's going on with you? I want this podcast always to be more like a two-way conversation. I know it's me sitting here talking in front of the mic, but I also want to hear from you. I want to know what's going on in your life. And if I'm being honest, I'm not always good at being vulnerable. I'm not always good at sharing what's going on in my life. So, I want to share a little bit about what's going on, and I would love to hear from you guys too. What's going on in this season of your life? Lately, for me, I think there's just been so much change, and I'm really trying to figure out, like, reestablish my dreams and what I want and how I want my life to look, and kind of re-looking at my goals and my business, and just really trying to make sure that I'm living the life that I want to live and that I'm being intentional about it. And it sounds so like glamorized. That sounds cool when somebody else is saying it. But when you're going through it, it can be a struggle. It can be hard to have change or to have things not moving as quickly as you want them to, or to feel like you want to be in a different place than you're in right now. And so I'm trying to remind myself, and it wasn't until I started talking about this that I thought, yeah, it's fall. I think it's officially fall. I don't know. It better be. So yeah, it's fall. Fall is a time for change. That's when leaves are changing, leaves are falling. It's time to start looking at things. So what season are you in life right now? Are you in a season to pause? Are you in a season to reflect? Are you in a season to like kick butt and go all in? Whatever season you're in, I just want to reassure you that you're a badass. It doesn't matter if something knocked you down, if something made you like rethink things, or if you are taking a break and just chilling, if you're catching your breath for a minute. It's like, that's fine. You can catch your breath for a bajillion years. If you can get back up and start moving again, that is badass. I think we get so caught in like beating ourselves up for the time that we were down, or the time we took a pause or took a break, or for the mistakes that we made. And we forget, wait, I'm still here. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still taking a step forward. And so if you can all relate to this, know that I am here for you. I am cheering for you. And you're not alone. I promise you, so many other people are going through what you're going through. I am in a season of change right now. And it's been very hard and just a lot of like soul searching and trying to figure out what I want and what's next. And I think that's normal. That's growing. That's life. Maybe not we, but I think people in general want to go just up, right? Who wants to feel like things aren't progressing like they want? It's like, no. I want results. I want them now. But life doesn't work that way. Or we want things to be just with a snap of the finger and without really having to figure it out. And so I just want to remind you that I am here for you. I can absolutely relate to the struggle. And that doesn't make us any less badass. Yeah, we're human. We're figuring it out as we go. And isn't that the great misconception of adulthood? As a kid, I always thought, oh my gosh, adults have it all figured out. I thought at 18 years old, I would magically just have it figured out. I don't know what's up with the snapping thing today. Bear with me. And even at 18, and then when I'd be 22, 26, I'd be like, oh my gosh, why am I not making more money by now? Why do I not have my whole life figured out? No, that's the thing. Nobody has it figured out. Nobody. I guarantee if you see somebody successful, they just weren't afraid of failing. They just became okay with it. Okay, yeah, I'm going to fail. I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to go again. There's just so many failures that we don't see that are behind the scenes or we forget about because the success seems so glorious. It seems so huge. And we weren't in their daily grind. We didn't have to see all the hardships they went through. We didn't feel the pain that they felt. And so everything might look Instagram worthy or social media worthy and look like everybody's doing so good. But I promise you, we all have to go through the same things. Yeah, there's variations, obviously, but you're not alone in the struggle. And one of those things that I've realized is if I don't share with you that I've been struggling, that things have been hard for me, that I can't, not that I can't figure out, but I haven't been able to figure out, or I'm reflecting on where I want to go or what the next steps for my life is or life are, I don't know, we'll go with it. But say with life, with business, trying to figure it all out, right? That's okay. That's normal. That's natural. But if you don't share it, if I don't share it, then we don't know that each other are going through the same things, right? And so it's okay to be vulnerable. I definitely think know your audience. If somebody isn't supportive of you in your life, then don't share everything with them. But those people that are in your corner rooting for you, share it. Or sometimes sharing with other people. We can be so, feel so guilty over things that are nothing to feel guilty about. But unless we talk to other people, unless we learn that other people have went through the same stuff that we have, then we don't know that we're not alone. We don't know that we don't necessarily need to feel guilty over it because other people have the same struggle. So if you can at all relate to this, I would love just hit me up on Instagram at ordinary to badass. You can tell me how you relate, right? Or the struggle you're going through, or you can just say change, fall, say one of those words, right? Tell me tell me in Instagram stories, fall, just to let me know that you're going through the change too. Because you know what? It helps me to know I'm not alone in this, to know that other people feel the same way that I do. And we'll get into the podcast thing in a minute, like some of the stuff that I had struggled with that. But I want to hear from you. Really, it's important to me that this is a two-way conversation and that I know that you can relate to anything that you hear on this podcast. Because that's a part of the thing of being a podcast creator or a podcast host. You don't always get feedback. You don't know what other people are thinking. And so I want to hear from you. I want to know what resonates with you, what you're going through. So hit me up on Instagram at ordinary to badass. Just send me a DM, or you can put the episode in your Instagram stories and tag me at ordinary to badass. Okay, let's get into what's ordinary and what's badass. Okay, so what's feeling ordinary to me this week? It's the podcast. I love this podcast, but I've been in my head a little bit lately about the downloads, the numbers, lack of feedback. I'm like, is this hitting? Is it not? Is it helping you? I don't know, but it's just been something that has felt very like I'm in the grind of it, right? I'm doing the work. I have my head down, pumping out episodes, but then is it good enough? There's always that fear, that doubt that seeps in. So what's feeling badass for me this week? What's feeling badass is just, I've really been working on my limiting beliefs. My limiting beliefs about money, about life, about love, all the things. And I'm trying to find out where it is that I have those beliefs and what I can do to change them. So like a limiting belief is something that you believe to be true and it's probably holding you back, right? But it's not true. It's like, it's not a fact. It's a story that you're telling yourself. And so we all have them. And it's stuff a lot of times that we have from childhood, like money doesn't grow on trees, or I don't know, stuff about rich people being, that's not a good one. I was going to say rich people being angry, but that's not what people think, but maybe like not trustworthy or something. I don't know. Obviously, that's not one of mine. But we have these limiting beliefs that we were either taught in childhood or we just assumed to be true based on like our parents' behaviors or the people that were really close around us that raised us, stuff that we saw and we put a narrative to it, unless we reflect on it and go back and look at it, then those still, we think they're true in our head, even though they may not be. And that could be holding us back. Only the rich get richer. That's another one that people think. And so it's like, unless you reflect on it and you look at it and you're like, is it actually true? And do some work on it, then, that those beliefs hang around. So that's what I've been working on this week is my limiting beliefs. And it feels badass to start to open up a little bit and to change things. And here's the thing. I talked about the podcast sometimes feeling ordinary, but even when the metrics mess with my head a little bit, I choose to believe that I control my destiny. And that's why I'm working on my limiting beliefs, is because I control what happens next. I'm not going to be just a victim to my circumstances. I am going to choose my destiny, and I choose to believe that I can make a change. So if you've ever felt stuck, I feel you. I hear you. You're not alone. Just know that we all have our ordinary moments and we have our badass moments. And sometimes we don't even recognize our badass moments. It's easier to recognize the ordinary or the drudgery of the everyday, but sometimes it's hard to recognize the things that we're doing that's badass. The fact that we're just waking up, putting one foot in front of the other, taking the next step. That is badass. And you are a badass, my friend. By the fact that you're listening to this, I absolutely know that. Okay. With that, let's get into the episode. Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I'm glad you're here. Today's guest is Rosie Zilinskas. Rosie, thank you so much for being on the show. Excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Marie. It's a beautiful day, so happy to talk about all things leadership.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
A year ago, Marie, I would have probably said ordinary, but now I'm going to say badass because I help women build confidence in their careers.
So what changed a year ago?
Interestingly enough, a year ago, I went to a meditation retreat at Joe Dispenza, and that was amazing. But I also started doing a lot of energy work, and that really transformed the way I was conducting business, the way I represent myself, and more than anything, how I connect and relate to women. So before a year ago, it was all very mind driven, and now it's more emotional driven. So that's what has made a big difference.
So for the listener that doesn't know, can you explain what energy work is?
Yeah. So a lot of it, people are like, you have to go into this like deep meditation, but energy work is really taking the time to sitting and just feeling your emotions and not necessarily don't think about anything, but just be. Just even like 5 minutes of just no distractions, no phone, no technology, and just understand what you're feeling and what you actually think about any specific topic. And then a lot of energy kind of goes through your energy centers or chakras, depending on how you want to do it. Like Joe Dispenza, for example, he calls the 7 energy centers. Other people call them chakras. So just feeling your emotions from the top of your head to your root chakra and understanding that it's okay to feel those negative emotions, because I think we're taught to just like push your emotions away. When you were little kids and you fall, and you're crying, people's like, stop crying, don't cry. It's like, no, really, it's like feeling those fears, those emotions, and sitting with them, you're able to release them from your body a lot quicker than if you were like, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. So it's a little bit, obviously it's a lot more complicated than that, but it's a little bit of an explanation on how to feel your feelings.
Yes, and I love it. And I went to Joe Dispenza probably a year and a half ago soon. Awesome. Yeah, I loved it. But I think that we can really relate because a lot of the people listening are women who work in predominantly male industries, and men traditionally aren't necessarily great at showing their emotions, or they're not taught it's acceptable. So like if you want to fit in and not stand out, then a lot of times the natural thing is like, oh yeah, let's be tough. Let's just toughen up and shut down those emotions. So I can absolutely relate to that. So Rosie, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for asking. So, I'm a certified high performance career coach. And it's interesting because, again, when I started coaching, I'm like, okay, I'm going to teach women how to do all that, the tactics and the, strategy and stuff like that. And what I actually am is a confidence career coach because a lot of women don't necessarily know how to advocate for themselves. And when I say advocate for yourselves, you explain to others how you can help them solve your problems through your skills and your knowledge. And it's so interesting because as time has evolved, it's that confidence piece that keeps coming back over and over and over. And I never expected to be in this confidence space. And what it boils down to is the more you're able to learn about yourself and prepare and be able to explain it to somebody else, the more confidence you gain through that preparation.
So, what is something that your clients struggle with their confidence? And what do you tell them to do?
The biggest thing is actually not having an intentional plan for your career. A lot of times we leave our careers on autopilot and we think, and this happened to me, and this is kind of why I'm doing the work that I'm doing. I was 40, had just finished a 4-year long divorce, and now I have my kids were 5 and 7 at the time, and just I wanted to do something more, something bigger for the organization, for me, and for my kids. And I found myself 40 still not being in management. And I realized that I was just kind of hoping that the senior leadership would notice my hard work. I'm like, oh, they'll notice. They'll notice all the things we've done, but they never did. And it wasn't until I really became intentional and listed all my accomplishments and started having conversations with those senior leaders, telling them I want to step into management. I want to do something bigger, something better for the organization. That's when things started coming. So expecting that your hard work is going to speak for itself, that's the biggest thing that women do.
Yeah, and it's like I think over the trajectory of our career, it's like we lose out on so many promotional opportunities because we're just hoping to get noticed. And then in the long run, it really puts us at a deficit.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's when I have a membership too, when we're starting to work on advocating for yourself, but more really designing your career path. What is it that you want to do? And the fourth quarter of the year is when people kind of like take the foot off the pedal and they're like, it's like after Thanksgiving, nobody's really doing anything. But this is actually the time for you to, those quiet days to either think about what you want or start having conversations with your manager about what they think where you're going and where you're headed. And so, again, with my membership, I'm like, use the fourth quarter very intentionally and don't just be like, okay, I'll just start again in January. So, this is a perfect opportunity to start having those conversations.
So you mentioned this idea about designing your career path. What does that look like, or what do you suggest people do to start designing their path?
Yeah. So when I say designing your career path is I have what is called the promotion readiness roadmap. So again, a lot of times when women are looking to, if they see a job description and the opportunity opens up, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to update my resume. I have to update my LinkedIn. What am I going to say during the interview? So with my promotion readiness roadmap, what what we talk about a lot is first quarter of the year, you start thinking about what is it that you want to do. Second quarter of the year is you assess your skills, start updating your resume, all those really tactical things. Third quarter of the year, you start having conversations with people, more getting advice. And the fourth quarter is advocating for yourself. So throughout the year, you've been working on yourself. You've been doing a lot of different tactical things. And then the fourth quarter, which is the advocacy quarter, that's when you actually start telling people, hey, I'm interested in doing this. So use every quarter of the year to work on a different phase. And again, for me, it's called the promotion readiness roadmap. But after a year of just, putting like 2 to 5 hours into your career every month, will really get you prepared so that when that next opportunity opens up, you are ready to go. And that's why I call it the promotion readiness roadmap, because I tell my members all the time, like, I want you to be promotion ready. So whenever that opportunity pops up, you're not scrambling to update all of your stuff and then you're ready to go.
Yeah, and I think that it's easy to get stuck in, like, the perfectionist trap and, like, wanting to go for promotion, but then wanting to be, like, absolutely ready and have everything be perfect, and so I could see that that might help feel more prepared, like, you feel less anxious in the moment when the promotion comes up. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell a super easy example is you've been in meetings where you had time to prepare and you went through all the research and you did all the slides, and the day of the presentation comes and you are fully prepared and you feel like a rock star, versus a situation where maybe somebody called off the presenter and they pulled you in to, hey, take over. And you're like, crap, I don't know what the material is. I kind of know, but not really. And you feel so not prepared and you don't feel confident because you're like, I have no idea what I'm going to present. So that's what I want women to understand is when you take the time to prepare about yourself, to learn about yourself, you walk into that interview or that conversation with your manager with that confidence versus that other feeling of you're like, oh, I don't know what to say. I want to ask for a raise, but I have no idea how to support it or how to talk to my manager about it.
Yeah, and you mentioned this idea of, like, getting into a meeting at times, and then you feel like, "Ah, what do I say?" Or, like, if it's put on you to lead the meeting and you don't know what to do. Now, I know in my career, I've made plenty of mistakes and had plenty of hiccups or things like I was just mortified that I did, you know? How do you suggest people bounce back from that when they do make a mistake or they feel like, "Oh, man, I just blew that one?"
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is like we're only human, right? We can't expect to be perfect. I always tell my clients, you know what? Especially when they're in the job search mode, I literally just went through this situation with one of my clients where they're like, I think I blew that interview. The number one thing that I tell them is like, give yourself a lot of compassion and grace because you did the best that you could and we fail. And then from the failure, and I've heard your podcast and I know that you talk about, failure is growth, but it's so true because when you've gone through a bad experience, you now realize and understand, okay, hey, I know how I could have done better. But I think that's a big key. It's like reflecting over what you think you did well and what you think you can do better so that you can learn from that experience for the next time.
Yeah, absolutely, and, like, sometimes I feel like going for a promotion, it's not even about necessarily the end game. It's like, yes, you want the promotion, but it's also the experience of going through it and learning from it, and if you do have to go again, you already have a step ahead of everybody else because you've done it before. You have more experience than they do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When I finally stepped into leadership, and it was a funny story because when I talked to a senior executive and I said, hey, I want to step into management position, they're like, really? Like, I mean, really, I'm a high performer and I'm doing all these things. They're like, well, you never said anything. And that was the moment that I was like, oh my gosh, how could I have just assumed that they knew? But then once I got into my management position, and it took me, a couple years to really like settle in, but that third year I was like, okay, like where am I going? Where am I headed? And for me, about every 3 years, I kind of start asking that question, like, what's up ahead? And then I say that I literally started campaigning for me because I started having conversations with as many senior leaders as I could and just say, you know what? I want to do something bigger, something better. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it is, but I want to, number one, let you know that I'm interested in continuing to grow. And number two, how did you do it? How did you get to where you are? And then I kind of started getting these little nuggets of wisdom that I started incorporating into my situation. So then, and the reason why I talk about the promotion readiness roadmap is because I did it myself. About 5 years into my management role, home office position opened up. And with that position, when it opened up, I was like, that's my job. I am going to take that job. And I did anything and everything that I could to prepare myself, going to the library and taking the What Color is Your Parachute? They publish that book every year. I did every exercise in there. I had my brother-in-law interview me, my sister interview me. I mean, I answered like tons of behavioral interview questions. And when I walked into that interview, I felt that confidence of, I know my stuff. I know I can do the job. Of course, like the job description, I scoured it. Like, what problems do they have? How can I bring solutions through my skills and my values? So it was a completely different way or method that I stepped into that executive vice presidency role versus into my first managerial role.
Yeah, and I think like you said, it's so important that we are saying we want the promotion because otherwise, they don't know, they're not mind readers. And if somebody has been vocal, in my opinion, if somebody's been vocal about going for that promotion and you have it, they're like, well, that person might quit if they don't get the promotion. And so they might give it to the person that's more vocal just because of that.
Yes, exactly. I once read about a story. I don't remember what law school this was, but the female law students had made complaints to the department chair that all the male law students were getting the teaching assistant positions. And then when they did a little bit of research, they found that all the males were asking for the teaching assistant positions and the females were not. And that was the big difference. And to your point is they're not mind readers. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know because imagine leaders, managers, they're busy. They're busy with their role, with their job, with their team. People are coming to them. So they're not thinking about your career other than mid-year reviews and year-end performance reviews. So it is up to us to tell them what is it that we are planning for our career. And that's why I talk about designing your career through taking action and advocating for yourself.
Yes, yes. And I once heard this quote. It's like, you don't get what you deserve or you get what you ask for. And I thought that was so powerful because it's like, yeah, a lot of times you do have to speak up and you have to ask for it. Um, Something you touched on was about talking to other people and kind of getting a mentorship. Can you speak a little bit to that? Like, did you formally ask, will you be my mentor? Or did you just kind of start to build relationships and network? If you could talk about that a little bit.
I did have a formal mentor because I did go to HR and they did pair me up with an individual that was outside of my division, which was really good because then they could give me that outsider perspective. It's still within the same company, but different division. But before I did that, I was asking again, those other people that had been even like 3 to 5 years ahead of me, where do you see me fitting in? Again, asking advice on what do I do well and what can I do better? That is what I call uncovering your blind spots because it is impossible for you to see yourself the way other people see yourself. And when you start asking that question, what can I do better? Then you know what you can work on. But the what can I do well really gives you an understanding of the things that you might not be aware that you're doing well. It could be good communication, good follow through. And you're like, oh, that's just what I do. But those are skills that you can highlight as examples in a conversation, in a hiring conversation. And then the other thing that I think is really important is to ask your peers, not just your manager and senior manager, but your peers, people that you have worked with and also your family. As much as, sometimes when we don't want to ask your family, like, okay, what do you think? But your family and friends can also give you some really good insight on your strengths. And that's how you start understanding yourself better because you can ask experts, give me expert advice on this. But when you ask them about themselves, they're like, well, let me think about that. So yeah, that's a little bit of what I did to answer your question.
So sometimes I think that it can be hard for women because they don't see other women leaders like them. And so they don't have other people to look up to in the same way, or they don't see people with the same leadership styles. What would you say to her?
Well, there may not be leaders within their organization, but nowadays, Marie, with all of the people, podcasts like yours, or, there's so many people posting positive things on LinkedIn. Don't limit yourself to the leaders within your organization. seek out outside advice. Again, there's so many leadership books. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you're familiar with the show Ted Lasso on
Mhm.
Apple TV. Fantastic show. There's this book that I just learned about, and I think it's like Lead It Like Lasso or something like that. Fantastic book. So they are every character in the show, they're coming up with a leadership style. So there's so many books that you can read and review on leadership. Again, tons of podcasts, tons of YouTubes. So don't limit yourself to the people that are just within your organization. There's so much knowledge out there that you can grab from. So it's just a matter of being intentional versus, having them in your corporation.
Yeah, and Ted Lasso himself, it's like he was a non-traditional leader, So yeah, he himself is a great example. Like you can do it your own way. It doesn't have to be how everybody else does it.
Yeah. And the one thing that I did appreciate about that show as well is that they focused on his panic attacks, his anxiety, his emotional state. And a lot of times, and I think, more in the past days of corporations, they would expect you to kind of leave your problems at the door and come in and be a machine and work all day. Where I think now people are really embracing, the emotional intelligence and the self-care and the taking care of an employee because they're human beings. We're not machines that you can go in and just turn off all your problems, that you have at home or whatever, and just be expect to do amazing work all day, every day. So now I think many companies are now talking about self-care and, to try to avoid burnout and having those healthy boundaries and all that good stuff. But that Ted Lasso leadership book is phenomenal. I've only started reading it, but I love it already.
I can't wait to check it out. I've not heard of it before, so yeah. Um, can we pivot a little bit? People see you on here and they're like, Rosie, she's a badass. She has it all together, but she never had to go through hard things. Or, we just see like the social media world and we don't see the whole backstory. Can you share maybe some of the struggles you had or something you had to go through to get to where you are today?
Oh my gosh. I think that's such a great question because you're absolutely right. When you're out on social media and you're a speaker, because I'm a keynote speaker as well, you're absolutely right. You don't see the backstory. And so I kind of alluded to my divorce a little bit, but my divorce was one of those things that kind of started my journey on personal development because again, it was a very long 4-year contentious divorce. I ended up losing everything financially. I walked away from my house, and it was actually a safety thing where I had to leave in the middle of the day with my kids and nothing else. And so I had to move in with my family. I lived with my parents for about a year and a half. And once the divorce was done, that's when I was able to focus on my career again. And that's when I ended up being 40 and started asking the question of like, okay, I need to make money for my kids. But life isn't easy for anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, the status that you have, where you are in life. Life is a series of problems that you have to continually solve, but it's how you react to the problems. And I am by no means perfect. I don't have a charmed life, but it's one of those things that through my energy work, through my meditation, through my emotional intelligence, you're able to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and then keep moving on. So I think the one thing that I have learned is that people are resilient and it's the way that you react to those types of problems. One of the things that I'm going through right now as we speak, my parents are 85 and 86. My mother has Alzheimer's. My father has Parkinson's. And thank goodness I have 3 sisters and myself. We take care of them. And it's really hard when you see, 3 or 4 phone calls from your dad every day and take me to the doctor and come over here, help me with this. It takes a lot. And I have to admit, sometimes I'm in a bad mood, crabby, because I didn't expect myself to be, a caretaker at 56. So, you have to take the good days with the bad days. And again, I'm happy that you asked the question because you're absolutely right. It's not all, roses in the background. So we're real people and we have trials and tribulations just like everybody else. So thank you for that question.
Yeah. What do you do to like pick yourself back up? when you're kind of in those moods or going through a funk or being hard on yourself, and maybe it's like the meditation that you talked about, but what do you do to, help yourself even back out?
Yeah, so I kind of go back to basics with my morning routine. I work out, whether it's, 30 minutes, I do a walk or whatever. I follow that with my 30-minute meditation. I do some journaling. I make sure that I take my supplements, I take my water, and then I eat healthy. Once I start, and I have fallen off of that, and I just kind of reinvigorated my morning routine about a month ago. And it makes such a big difference because once I go through that and I don't have little kids anymore. My kids are grown. We don't have any pets. So it's just my husband and I. So I have the luxury of getting up at like 5 or 6 a.m. and I don't start work till 9. So I have 3 hours to myself in the morning and I take all of the 3 hours to just get myself in that good position. But by the time I hit my desk at 9 a.m. and I'm a solopreneur, so I'm my own boss, then I feel like I've won the day. So that's one of the things, the pillars that when I fall off of that routine for whatever reason, that's when I start flailing more. So that's one thing that I do.
So can I ask what led you to make the leap, like from going from your corporate job to, being a solopreneur?
So in September of 23, I got invited to leave. So they downsized my position and they gave me this package and whatnot. But I had already been since 2019. I had started Toastmasters. I started National Speakers Association. So I went through their Speakers Academy. I started volunteering to kind of coach on the side. And from all of that, I was like, I have so much knowledge and so many skills to give that when they and I started my podcast and things like that. So when they laid me off, it was just a natural thing that, I really just want to see if this is a real thing, if I can do this as a living. And quite honestly, I did start applying for jobs. I had applied for a chief operating office position. I was down to one of two candidates. And then they asked us to do some kind of project for the next interview. And when I went to work on the project, I got really nauseous. I felt like I was going to throw up. And I was like, cannot do this. So the second my husband walked through the door, I was like, we need to talk. And he's like, listen, if you feel that you can do this as a business, then I support you. I fully support you 100%. And that's what made my decision. I just could not fathom going back into an environment that's constantly changing and there's no clear direction. So that's one of the things that kind of led me to be an entrepreneur. And I love the work that I do. I love helping women discover themselves because a lot of this time, and I'm not a therapist, but I do high performance coaching and it's literally like peeling back the onion. And it's just a series of asking questions. An easy example, I was talking to a client and she said, my little job. And I was like, oh, hold on. Why did you say little job? And they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I did that. So the language that we use minimizes the value that we bring to the table. So I love the work that I do, but that's one of the reasons why I decided to pursue this track. And I never saw myself as an entrepreneur thinking like, oh my gosh, I need my paycheck in the bank every 2 weeks. But, here I am.
Yeah, but I think my favorite part of that story is that you listened to your body. When you felt nauseous and you felt like something's off here, it could be easy to be like, oh, stop feeling like that. Like, just get in this, do this. You have to make money, or this is how you have to do it. But you listen to your body and then reevaluated. So I think that's powerful.
Yes.
So let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
I think the biggest advice that I have for women is to really take time to reflect on what is it that they're doing their work, what part of that work brings them joy, and try to do more of that in a very intentional way. So maybe do training, go and have a conversation with your boss about, hey, how can I do more of this? And then just taking the time to do an intentional task, like I said, 2 hours a month. So by the end of the year, you'll have 24 hours that you would have worked on something that has to do with your career. So the designing your career intentionally is one thing that I'd say you can schedule.
How do we connect with you?
Yeah. So the easiest way to connect is going to my website. My website is nowomanleftbehind.com, and woman is WOMAN. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn under Rosie Career Coaching. So those are the two ways that people can connect with me.
Rosie, thank you so much. You've been a total badass, and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Thank you so much, Maria. I appreciated our conversation.
And with that, we'll end our show. Call the badass women staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it. Okay, wasn't that episode with Rosie amazing? Here are 5 takeaways from the episode. Hope is not a strategy, and hard work alone won't get you promoted. Number 2, design your career intentionally. Just 2 hours a month towards your future compounds into power. Perfection kills momentum. Progress and preparation build real confidence. Number 4, mentorship isn't magic, it's conversation. Don't be afraid to ask people how they did it. Collect nuggets of wisdom. Number 5, feel the emotions, don't bury them. From Joe Dispenza's energy work to daily reflection, your intuition is a leadership tool. Don't forget about it. Okay, so the pop culture punchline from this episode, which is funny because it's how Rosie reminds me of Ted Lasso, and she did recommend a Ted Lasso book about leadership. Listen to the episode. I can't remember the name now. But Rosie reminds me of Ted Lasso because heart-forward leadership that proves empathy is a power move. And it's not a weakness. Rosie, she's rewriting the promotion playbook, one confident conversation at a time. Okay, and an affirmation to hold on to this week. You don't need permission to design your career, your wealth, or your worth. And remember, never ever shrink for a seat at the table because you were born to build it. And with that, we'll end our show. So all the badass women staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.